Welcome, both of you.
Oh, thank you.
Welcome, Clark, too. And, you can join the conversation if you
Okay, I
want
didn't
to.
know if I was
This is
invited.
almost a free country, so we can talk about anything. Um,
We're gonna have to move this
yeah,
around
put
like
him
this.
because I don't have a jacket
All
on,
right.
so I
Well,
don't like it.
there. How's that?
Don't get too close because I hear your husband is very jealous. So don't get close to. Anyway,
An
Judge,
election
thank
scandal.
you.
Great.
Thank you for being here today. And you never did send to Don any of that stuff that you were supposed to. He's been waiting for that for you. Anyway, can we talk, Craig? Can we talk about the situation with the North Las Vegas or?
Well, we've got open litigation, so we want to avoid any topics that are going to be seen.
Well, that's why I'm
Yeah.
asking you.
So I think we need to avoid the anything other than the generalities regarding the case.
Right, right. I was told then. As a matter of fact, yesterday I was told then she was right. She was entitled to a defense by the city.
Oh,
Yeah.
who told you that?
Oh,
Hopefully the city.
I, and but the thing is, this is the way they put it to me. She was entitled, but she was too fast to run the card. I don't know if that was the case or not, but she was entitled to a defense by her employer, which is I don't know if
The city.
her employer is the city or the people of North Las Vegas because she was elected. She's not an employee of the city, right?
Well, she is and she's not. She's an independent official, the city of North Las Vegas. It's the nature of being a judge, and I won't speak for her since I've never been a judge, but they are public officials and they tend to attract a lot of controversy and tend to be a lot of emotionally upset people. And one of the requirements for anybody to assume the office of judge is to be protected civilly and have someone looking out for your back so that all the crazies who file lawsuits, the people who are seeking a bajillion dollars for some perceived right, someone's got to defend them. In this case, the city of North Las Vegas did not step up to plate and represent Judge Harris on a couple, or Judge Ramsey on a couple of those lawsuits.
And you have two lawsuits.
Two lawsuits now.
Yeah. What
Correct.
was
We
the
filed
other?
the newest one on February, in the first week in February on the duty to
For
defend.
what was the lawsuit about?
Well, the first lawsuit is still going on, so that one
Yeah.
I retained counsel for that one. The second one we filed on the duty to defend, and hopefully it'll put all these issues to rest. I do believe the city has a duty to defend me, and they failed to do so, and I think that'll come out eventually.
Eventually.
It's unfortunate.
Why is
though.
it taking so long for the Supreme Court to hear those cases? You will assume that they wanted to clear the person, especially when it's a judge.
No, two things. Everybody wants everything now for free, and that's just the nature of the work. The Supreme Court of Nevada deserves to have more than a little forbearance here. This is an issue of first impression. It's never been brought up before. It's an issue that's going to last forever for the history of our state. Whatever they decide, it's going to have lasting
Definitely.
ramifications. I would believe that any of those judges, that the Supreme Court justices know that whatever they sign is going to be part of their legacy to the state. I would believe, and I know them to be honorable and diligent people, I believe they're spending a lot of time and considering it fully. And whatever they decide, they're going to have to justify it legally. So I would be surprised, it wouldn't be surprised if we got a 30 or 40 page opinion laying out the issues and litigating them. But second guessing what someone else is thinking. and
But
want
what
to
were you
do.
saying about everybody like everything for free? What did the free have to do with?
Well, yes, that's just the nature of our culture. Everybody wants something immediately overnight and wants it done well. We've asked,
I see. That was just
yeah, the Nevada Supreme Court has got a very tough decision to make here, or at least a involved decision. And in fairness to any human being, having to you go through a large amount of material and make sense of it and write a coherent opinion, it's just taking some time.
And we don't want them to rush to a decision. We want it to be the right one.
and you think they want to be the one to do the opinion, not the appellate court, right?
My wife used to be a clerk for the Nevada Supreme Court. She understands how the court works a little bit better on the inside than I do. I don't know the inner workings of an appellate court, so I don't know.
Well, we never had an appellate court before.
Well, that's a different,
Yeah.
yes.
Well, this went right up to the Supreme Court.
This is
not
right up the
appellate
Nevada
court.
Supreme Court. The appellate court, well, now that we have the Nevada Court of Appeals, but the Supreme Court is also an appellate court in that it reviews lower courts' decisions.
Right. Yeah. Yeah. They used to be the only source to appeal. You can go nowhere else unless you go higher. But
Right.
now they have a choice to give it to the appellate court or do it themselves, or
Yes, sir.
right. That's the
right.
way it is, right?
If I understand the procedures up there, and I'm a trial attorney, not an appellate attorney. So, okay, for general information is what I know, which is that the cases all go to the Nevada Supreme Court, and the cases that they believe do not have a precedential value goes sent to the Court of Appeals. And the stuff that is policy making or case of the first case of what we call in the law first impression. This is the first time anybody's looked at the issue. Those go up to the Nevada Supreme Court. And we've clearly raised issues, and the case raises issues of first impression, or the first time anybody's heard of it. And it's going to be a case of lasting impact. God forbid that they actually think that you can recall a judge by popular vote or by popular petition. The consequences of that are going to be long and far-reaching, and I don't believe that they really want to do that. There's a lot of...
Especially in smaller towns.
I wrote in my column about you today, yesterday's paper. You didn't read it either.
I did not read yesterday's paper.
No, in my paper.
No, I did not.
You didn't
I'm
get the
sorry.
Tribune? You don't get the Tribune in there?
I should. Let me
You-
look.
You know?
I don't know.
should.
You said you texted me yesterday to confirm today's
I know.
appointment, and I showed you
I-
my
I
text
heard your
message.
first show, and I thought that you said that the Constitution of Nevada provides that judges cannot be recalled.
No, strictly speaking, all right, we've had the benefit of several generations of thinking on the subject. The initial Constitution, or the initial issue for judges, was they were going to be recalled like the federal. There would be an impeachment, and then they would have to have a trial. Nobody got impeached, and nobody ever got recalled. Then they had a position where they passed a statute that says, well, then in the early part of the 20th century, we'll recall the rascals phenomenon went through the country, and a lot of states, including Nevada, amended so that all public officials can be recalled. Well, the question is, what is a public official? There's two different articles in the Constitution of the state of Nevada. Now, judges are unique among public officials because they don't get to do what they want. They have to do what the law says. So a lot of times a judge could be doing a spectacular job. We might have the very best judge, and what he is doing is wildly unpopular, okay? Because here's what the law the legislature passed was. So that was always, whether that actually even applied to judges or whether they were not defined under public officials remains in doubt. And then finally, in the 60s, when I was a very young man here, even a teenager, that generation of leaders set up a Commission for Judicial Ethics, which is a independent body that has the power to remove judges. And in the history of the state of Nevada, the only people that ever been removed from the bench have been removed by the Commission on Judicial Ethics. So now that we have the Commission on Judicial Ethics, is the prior procedures implicitly overturned? I mean, when you pass a new law that is contradictory to the old law, it kind of means that the old law isn't there anymore. but people are sloppy and they don't remove the old law, so they just let it sit there. So we've argued, and I believe correctly, that the discipline and review of judges and their performance on the bench is properly and only properly in the hands of the Committee for Judicial Ethics. Because candidly, a lot of the citizens don't really appreciate what a judge does on a day-to-day basis, or what what a good judge is and what a bad one is.
Okay, did this ever go before the ethics?
It is now, right?
It is now.
It is
Oh,
now.
okay, but
It is
okay.
now.
My understanding on your first show was it was before
No,
the
they
judge.
They were trying to somebody found a provision for public officials, not judges, collected the signatures to recall a judge under the wrong section of the Constitution.
Right.
All right, and that's where we were in front of a judge on.
That's what I understood the
Yeah.
first show to be. That's
Yeah.
the one I overheard.
So the answer, unfortunately, since our last show, or since last we met and talked on this, is very little's happened. We argued the case to the Nevada Supreme Court, and they have what they call it under submission. That means they're considering it.
So their bottom line, I guess, is do they want judges to be removable by this ethics commission
Which is what I believe.
or not?
Yeah, the Ethics Commission strikes me as the better mechanism. In the history of the state, since 1864, the only judges that have been removed from office have
Yeah,
been
but the
removed
Ethics Commission is only exists since 1976.
76 or 80, somewhere around there. It's
76.
a relatively new phenomenon. But that commission alone is the only one that's ever removed judges. The voters have never recalled one. There's never been an impeachment.
Do they go by laws or do they just go by their whims?
Oh, no. The part and parcel of the creation of the commission was also a creation of a whole set of an adoption of a judicial ethics rules that have the force of law. So what they did was, under a judge's job became more defined. Remember, under English common law, judges were old English lords, and they had a class system, and they were pretty much.
And they wear the wig
They
and
wear the
everything.
wig, and they'll pretty much they'll do a lot as they damn well please. Thank you very much. So we adopted that system, and we are a lot more libertarian oriented, and so the rules became much more firm what a judge can and can't do. And Nevada's rules actually were adopted from a national institute that had created a set of recommended rules for judges. So
Have those rules been enacted by the legislature, so public policy or not?
I apologize. I should have reread my brief when I came back. My recollection is yes, but I don't want to misspeak.
Because wouldn't it be suspect if it had not been
No,
enacted by
the rules are there and they have the force of law. I just don't know if they were done, but yeah, they would have to have been done by the legislature.
That's what I say. How could
They
it?
are, okay, almost certainly would have been done by the legislature.
Yeah,
You
okay.
gotta, in fairness, you gotta remember our brief on this case was 45, 50 pages of law and history. And, so,
1.4675.
right, so yeah, they do have the force and effect of law. They were adopted by the legislature.
Okay,
But
so
let me ask you, don't you think, and if I'm asking the wrong question, please ignore me, okay? You think the Judicial Committee is kind of a political,
No, they were created.
Well,
They have a
by
purpose.
definition, everything in government does is political. I mean, it's policy choices. We're gonna
yeah,
let you do
because
this, we're gonna let you do that.
look at, first of all, amazing, they don't give you the name of the members of the commissioners. No, we cannot give you that. They don't tell you where they located. We cannot tell you where we located for safety reasons. I don't know why, but everything is a mystery, and everything.
I can't say
I
that.
don't know about that.
Yeah, I don't know about that.
No, I called there. I did myself. I called over there to find out who was the members. I wanted to know honestly, and I know I gotta be careful what I said when you guys are here, but I wanted to know the connection between the commissioners and David Thomas. And that's why I wanted to, it's like I put a request to ask the Supreme Court who they use for campaign manager, because it gotta be some kind of irregularity in there, because everybody is so afraid of David Thomas, then it is irresponsible and it's unfair to everybody else. And I want to get to the bottom of that. And I'm going before I die, I'm going to find out why are they so afraid of David Thomas, you know. And I know you guys cannot respond to that, so don't even. I'm not asking a question. I just making a statement in my radio show, and I am responsible for my words.
Good issue, but it's a much bigger issue than the one we're talking about. And the answer is, should we popularly elect judges? And the answer is no. Okay, but the problem we have in Nevada is nowhere in this state, and I'm just going to say this straight out. Nowhere in the state does this state have any tradition of doing things fairly and impartially.
Right.
It's a very small state, and everything's good old Boyd, and everyone makes a phone call here.
I always said that this is the country of Las Vegas. This is a different country.
The reality is Nevada operates more like a small Latin American country than it does
Yes.
like an American state.
Yeah.
Now, and I hate to say that, I grew up here, but the
I'm glad
reality is,
I'm glad somebody agree
it's-
with me.
no, it's- this
I've
is-
been here 60 years, so I understand that.
the Banana Republic of Nevada.
Yeah.
Okay, but having said that, when you elect judges popularly, there are consequences, and part of the consequences are there are political operatives who are going to take advantage and game the system and meaningfully call into question the impartiality of the judiciary, and that's unfortunate facts of life. Now, when I was a kid here, and everybody in the state knew everybody, and not just Las Vegas, but in the state.
Yeah.
Now, we all knew who the fools were. We all knew who the blowhards were. We all knew who the guys who couldn't be trusted were.
Yeah.
And electing judges had at least some function. It actually worked. But since I got back from the service in the last 20 years, we've added 2 million people to this valley. And now we've got a bunch of Californians, mostly, who don't know anybody. Now-
And they wanted to make Las Vegas, California.
So now we've got a judiciary of 34 district court judges in Clark County, the vast majority of whom are unfamiliar with or to the voters in the county. The vast majority of the voters, being new arrivals, are frazzled. They're trying to get their houses set up, their families going. They don't have long ties here. They don't know who a lot of these judicial candidates are. And into that void steps these political operatives who are causing mischief. Now, we could do a number of things. You could have an independent commission sit down and make lawyers, grill lawyers, do ethics reviews, create a panel, and they get the top 2 or 3. But we're in a state now where no one's going to trust Nevada state officials, because if we appoint judges, it just becomes a matter of R&R advertising picking who the judges are. So
Right.
the voters in Nevada, they're not going to let Billy Vasiliadis pick who the judges are anymore. That's what would happen. So absent some tradition of excellence or some tradition of rigorous application, we're stuck electing judges, and I've all but given up that there's going to be any meaningful change in my lifetime. This is once you've got a system in place, it's very hard to change it. And look, I don't see that we're stuck with it. So about the best we can do is keep information out there, and those of us who are interested in public affairs can keep on top of it.
That's what I'm trying to do. Go ahead,
There's
Josh.
different schools of thoughts on that too. There's certain states that have retention elections where a committee appoints a judge and then the public vote to whether they want to retain them or not. If their majority is not to retain, then the committee appoints another person in that position. But then ultimately, the voters get to decide whether to retain or not. But then they have to go through the hoops of seeing if they're qualified to be appointed to that position too. And that seems to be an even balance too, and that's done in some other states. And there's been studies to see which is better or worse, and which is. But however, in Nevada, this is the system that we have, and that's what we honor.
Yeah, and that's what we have to go for. But I been say that's why I like to hear Craig talk, because I've been saying that for a long time, and every time I write about the same thing. This is a different country. This is not. We don't follow the laws of the United States over here. And this is like, now I'm going to start using his word, a banana republic, and I'm going to steal that from him. But I do believe then it's too much power for somebody to appoint judges. And like he said, it's going to be R&R, and it's going to be Sig Rogic, and it's going to be Tom Letitia. And, I think it should be a limited of what these people can do for the clients. I don't even think that David Thomas is in the same league as any of those three that I mentioned. To be honest with you, he just got lucky and get the control of those judges. But anybody else is not that way. Now, let me ask you, and Craig, if I ask the wrong question to the judge, please stop me. Who do you piss in the review journal? Why do they getting to be so mean to you?
I don't know. I have no idea who writes
Two
these stories.
editorials,
Well,
and now you show me Jenna Morrison, which I have a lot of respect for her.
It
I think
seems
she's the
like-
only one in there that can be fair, but I haven't read that article. I missed that. I don't know if.
At one time, there was a reporter that was writing negative stories, seemed to be quite often, and they had an office in the new City Hall building in North Las Vegas. They wrote one story that alluded to the fact that I kind of did not transport inmates downtown within a reasonable period of time, and they gave two examples that these inmates were lost in the system, and kind of put the article slanted to where I was to blame for that. However, those inmates in the system that were transferred were different names of the alphabet, and you can pull up the article and see who that is. However, I handle cases A through K in North Las Vegas. I don't handle L to Z. So those weren't even my cases, and that was the other judge that had those cases. Yet I got the scathing article about it. And that was the first time I actually responded, and I sent in the dockets to show, hey, can we get a correction here? And one never came. And
Not the facts, it's the accusation that hangs you.
correct. And that's actually what happened, but I don't
They're
handle.
not interested in the facts.
No, there's two departments in North Las Vegas, and I handle cases A through K, and the other judge handles cases L to Z. So that way, there's consistency there. When you come in and you continue your case, we can see what's going on and whether or not it needs to be set for trial, or if you're in compliant with your court-required programs or anything, or if it needs to be closed out, or if you need to lower fines. That way,
Now,
we can kind of keep track.
let me ask you something. You're a judge, he's an attorney, you go to court every day because I see you there. Don't you see any kind of irregularity to find that the newspaper has an office inside the courthouse?
Well,
Don't you-
I don't think it's in the courthouse. That was a different. The courthouse is separate from the city hall, but I don't think that they're still there now.
Well, the Regional Justice Center, they have an office right there in the first floor.
Yeah, that's
And
not unusual.
I don't,
That's not unusual.
No, it's not.
No,
It's,
I went to law school in Baltimore. The newspaper I remember they had an office there.
they do too?
Memory serves, this is 30 years ago, but yeah, there's nothing unusual about newspapers having a small office in the courthouse.
Well, luckily, this
I
reporter
found
got
that-
reassigned, so he's reassigned to a different area, and we got another reporter who started writing some neutral stories and at least giving the other side of the story. And the minute that a neutral story came out, since it wasn't favored by
They move her.
the political parties, no, she's still there.
Oh.
The minute that a good story or a negative story was neutralized, or both sides were given, and it was a fair reporting story, which I totally applaud. The very next day, I had a unnamed editorial scathing in the newspaper. So apparently, who's ever on the editorial, and they're all unnamed, they're unsigned.
Somebody
they're
with an
unnamed.
agenda is reading the paper.
Right. So anytime a neutral story came out, or one that was positive on my behalf the next day, or within
Gotta
2 days,
combat it,
I
yeah.
had another
Wow.
unnamed editorial.
Yeah, but they do that in that way. If you complain or you criticize the editorial, well, why you didn't criticize the other one? They give you that to give you a balance of the truth, but there's never going to be a full truth about anything in this town.
No, I've given them the information. It's just a matter of what they want to print. But
Yeah.
to answer your question, I don't know anyone at the Review Journal that I've made upset. So
because I don't understand why because they are very nasty.
well, maybe it's just one
Editorial,
person
you know.
that's politically connected. I don't know. Maybe it's one person that's politically connected. Or
And I even called the lady who wrote the last article, and she was so rude. She didn't even answer my call back. You know, I always return people's phone call. I can find the reason, but I mentioned it to her. I said, I know you are the Almighty Review Journal, and you're not gonna return my call. But I think you should mention the fact that David Thomas is the campaign manager. Don't just put campaign manager or political consultant when you know the name. But she never did call me back. You know, I don't see any reason why it should be that way. Now, let's turn the page a little faster. You're running for office now, but not for the same office that you're holding, right?
Right, my office is a 6-year term and it's up next year, so I have a year left on this term. I have met the qualifications to run for district court judge, and as clearly shown by all the articles, I do not let politics get involved in my court. I follow the law. And so
Right.
that works out really well because I can remain neutral on anything, and I'm not gonna bow to those political pressures. And this position that's open, it was vacated by the judge when they moved up to the Court of Appeals. That's always a natural progression to move upward, and that's one of
Right.
the things that I'm doing now is I'm moving from municipal court to district court. We're hoping to move up to district court. It was filled by an appointed committee,
Yeah.
appointed people into those positions. And
It was
so-
appointed by the governor.
Okay, well, and they had to go through committee first to get there.
They do?
I believe so.
Yeah, there's quite an extensive process, I think.
Yes, there's a,
Applications and committees and,
Yeah, if you took the time to fill out the application and
right.
wanted to go through that.
Okay, I thought it was just the governor that appoint whoever, no.
under Nevada law, he's restricted to the top 3 applicants, though the committee will forward 3.
I didn't
to
put
him.
my name in to get appointed to one of those positions at the time. I maybe should have, but at this time I'm running now, and so it's an open for election to the public, and so that's what I'm running for.
And that have nothing to do with North Las Vegas.
No.
If
no.
by every mistake you don't get elected to district court,
Well, I still have my position now.
you still have your position, right?
Correct.
Until next year.
But I've done some good things while I've been at municipal court, of course, that doesn't get reported. You know, there's a lot of things that we changed as soon as I took office. One of those was dividing up the alphabet, so the other judge and I had an even caseload.
Okay.
Then we could manage our caseload and see where our needs were. We actually added, we went from 37 sessions to 49 sessions a week. So we added more sessions. Well, that means obviously the prosecutors always have to work more, and the defense attorneys that we hire to work as our public counsel have to come in more as well. But it serves the people better, and your calendars are not 4 hours long. You know, it gets the people in and out, and it's better for our staff too. If you have regular intervals of people that are coming out of court, you're not bombarding the windows with the payments and the requirements and the conditions, and so your lobby's not full.
who
It's
came up with those
constant.
changes? Where did those come from, those ideas?
The other judge and I met in June after
So
I was
you
elected.
did it, you had input to that. So you
Yes, I
did
did.
something from sensible, common sense changes,
Well, it did
so
make
to
sense.
speak, right?
Well, another thing we did is we
That's
know
good.
we're not at the RJC, so I laugh every time I say this word outlying area, but we're really not that far outlying. But, you know, you do have to get in your car and drive to our court, and it is a little bit, you know, not inconvenience, but convenience for the attorneys to get down there. And we appreciate the fact that the Regional Justice Center, you know, regionally located all these courts in one building. However, our citizens need, you know, representation too, but if we make it not good for the attorneys to want to come down to our court, they're not gonna get the same representation, and there needs to be equal access to justice. So we allow the attorneys to come in any day of the week, and we set their calendars on their schedule. So we have the morning calendars and also 11 o'clock pretrials, or I have 11 o'clock pretrials. But the big thing is we set those every day. Before, they used to be 2 days a week, and that was it. So the attorneys didn't have a choice. Now, if they're handling quite a bit of cases within our court, they can set all their pretrials when they come back, or their trials, on a specific day. So they can make Tuesday their North Las Vegas day, or Wednesday, depending on their schedule. And we want that because the people need representation, and it assists with the attorneys, and it's nice to come in and that we ask them, what day of the week would you like to reschedule, Monday through Thursday, and we give them that choice. And that was a good thing. That's something that wasn't done before. So we've added more sessions. We've made it more, you know, people-friendly also, because it's not just for attorneys. If somebody has to come back to show whether they got a license or the registration fixed, we let them choose what day of the week they want to come back. Because our town is 24 hours and people have different work schedules. Depending on
Yeah.
seniority, you don't, some people have Monday, Tuesdays off, some have Wednesday, Thursday. So let's let them come in when they can and what's good for them. So we've made it more user-friendly for everybody. Also, with the user-friendly portion of it, now that we have the windows that are open, we moved our collection division from upstairs to downstairs. And while they're doing their regular duties, we can open windows if we have an overload of people in the lobby. Some days right after payday or after a holiday or
Yeah.
checks get issued, then we have, more people that come in on certain days than others, and we can staff for that. But this way, with all of our staff being downstairs on one level, they're easy to open up extra windows so we can help that overflow and not have lines out the door. There used to be times when lines were out the door. And
I
people
know,
had
I
to
saw
wait for
that.
hours.
I saw
Sounds
that.
like policies that are hard to argue with. They seem to make sense.
Well, and
But
that's
I'd
what
heard
it's
part of
worth.
the controversy was that, let's say a normal fine would be $300 for some infraction, and somebody wanted you to charge $600 so that we could have some more enhanced revenue coming in. Was any validity to somebody wanting more money? So they wanted you to increase fines that you would.
Well, I took over from a regime that pretty much did $1,000 fine and 180-day jail sentence on a lot of cases. Like Mr. Mueller referenced earlier, the legislature requires certain fines on certain cases. It's not that you're restricted by that, but there's minimums. So what I started doing is I go by the minimums and I have them argue why they should be increased, and if there's grounds there to increase them, I follow that. But I want to hear the facts of why this case should be different than what the legislature recommended for that type of case and that type of fine.
But your town needs more money,
I don't.
so you have to increase your fines.
I've never allowed that to.
But I've heard
influence
that
my
was one of the
decisions.
complaints. That's the only reason I'm asking. I don't know. I heard that was one of the complaints that was causing
You
all
have
this
to
stuff
get used to the cynical
against
state
you.
That's
of
okay.
his.
That may be why they're asking for more fines, but we have never had a meeting with anyone saying our town needs more money, increase those fines. That.
No, I just heard that was part of the problem, that they were going after you because you weren't, the fines that you were putting out there weren't high enough for the powers that wanted to use the money.
Well, that's actually,
I don't know how to put it.
well, that's actually forbidden by the U.S. Constitution, right? And the federal Supreme
Well, you
Court
would-
has said
well,
courts are not
you would
supposed
think
to.
so.
No, the U.S. Supreme Court has made abundantly clear that local courts are not to be self-funding. They're supposed to get a budget from the
Right,
central,
right.
and all the money gets turned back. As an aside, just an interesting point, Nevada State Constitution has a provision in it that says all criminal fines are to be sent to the state education fund.
Mm-hmm.
And it's not being followed. A lot of money gets collected by the municipalities that they keep
Going to
for
like a
themselves.
general fund or what?
Right. And
Okay.
in 1884, I think it was, 20 years after Nevada became a state, the Nevada Supreme Court, when there was 3 justices, ruled that that constitutional provision didn't apply to municipal courts. So I'm looking for a case to get that one back and re-argued again in front of the Nevada Supreme Court. But the reality is the state constitution actually very clearly forbids what you were talking about. The U.S.
Right.
Constitution forbids what you're talking about.
There's an old adage, follow the money, so that's where I'm
Follow-
always tending to go to that rule, follow the money.
Follow the money, and you almost always figure out things work.
You'll find something wrong.
I don't disagree with you. Having said that, the Supreme Court of the United States has said no courts can be self-funding for just this reason.
Yeah, that's
The Nevada State Constitution has made it abundantly clear all the money the courts collect are supposed to go to state education fund. That's not being followed either. So,
In her case, in the North Las Vegas case, no, you know her case, the money from the court go to the general funds,
yes.
according to Mayor Lee, right? That's what you guys.
Well, there's assessments,
Have
there's
to-
county assessments, and there's different portions that are divided off. There's AA fees and things that they split off, but then the excess does go for that,
For the general funds,
correct?
and it's not supposed to be kept.
Well, we all work
In
with
one
your
of the
budget.
interviews that I have with you, you said then you had that money earmarked for computers,
Correct.
and they took the money.
We had over $800,000 that was earmarked from the previous judge before me, had made an agreement with the city council and the judge that's there now, and the court administrator to accumulate these funds for a certain amount of time so they could get enough money to buy a new computer program. So when I came on board, that money was still there, and so we looked at which computer programs, and we agreed on ones we were gonna use, and we were gonna put that into place. However, the new mayor that came in decided to take the money, and had been earmarked for a computer program system, and I think that was one of the first issues of contention. But
So
we're
how
dealing
did
with it, and we're
how
saving
did
more
that
than
ended up?
increase.
How they ended up? They took
They grabbed the money.
grabbed the
Follow
money.
the money.
Yeah. Okay. Now, let me ask you something. You running for district court. What department?
For Department 20, there's only
20?
2 departments open this time.
Yeah, two.
They're 4-year positions.
That was George Abbey Silver and Josh Tao, right?
Correct.
And
And I think I'm
why
going
did
for
you
Judge
pick-
Teo's position.
Josh Tao.
When he was a prosecutor, and then he became appointed to a district court judgeship. They actually moved
Oh,
me
that's
from
you're talking about
Jerry.
the judge that is now
No,
in
from
there.
Jerry,
Jerry Tao.
correct. When he was moved upward, then I got transferred from juvenile court as a prosecutor down to district court as a prosecutor down with the DA's office to kind of replace him. So I've always had a running joke with him that I've replaced all his jobs. A lot of ways.
Oh.
But I'm running.
Why
into
do you
the-
have to run? You should just.
Just walk.
just
Yeah.
But why?
I will.
Why did you? Oh, you picked that because Jerry Tao wasn't
It
that.
was his old seat.
oh.
I took over last time I went from juvenile down to the DA's office. when
Will you be
he moved
handling both
upward.
criminal and civil?
Correct. And I actually am the, one of the candidates there's 4 of us in the race, and I have worked as a prosecutor and defense in district court. You know, if you look at the other candidates, there's some of them that come from the federal bench or federal bar, and there's some of them that come from California, so different states. So what you need is somebody local that knows Nevada law and that has appeared in district court, both civil and criminal.
That's what I was going to ask you. Correct me if I'm wrong. Laws are
They're very
mostly
different.
like different, right?
Very different.
Very different. Some laws are not, but the majority of the laws are different between the federal and the state.
Well, and the more cases you handle, the more familiar you are with the types of issues that come up and that arise. Before I joined the prosecutor's office, I was in private practice where I handled civil cases, and I worked also in defense. And I think that's given me a wide variety to help me with this position because I've seen it from both sides now. I worked on a construction defect case for the Venetian, and actually
Oh, really?
went to trial on that case while I was in private practice. And it worked out to our advantage, actually, because we were able to minimize damages. So I also got a judgment for 6 cents, which kind of started a waylay of issues of whether or not I'm a prevailing party and can get my attorney fees, and if it's offset by the other side's attorney fees. And that was a good, interesting issue that
That's
had to be
interesting
resolved.
to you, Clark. The prevailing attorney getting paid and the not prevailing attorney not getting paid.
Well, my understanding in the law, I don't know if it means anything anymore in Nevada or not. I mean, mostly non-prevailing attorneys do not get fees.
Correct. However, both sides were a prevailing party because they got a judgment against them in, a couple million, and we got a judgment for 6 cents because of an issue that they correctly
You familiar with trust
conceded
law?
that I had that.
Are you familiar with trust law?
I'm gonna say no at this point.
Okay.
I don't wanna
sounds
be
like-
questioned on it, I know, it's a
That
loaded
sounds like
question.
that sounds like a free legal advice question.
No, well, it's curious because we're
No,
talking
it's
about
not.
legal
It's just that
fees.
I'm writing
Legal
a serious
fees are,
article about trust.
I've done construction defect, I've done the civil litigation, I've actually represented Mary Hill Schools on a First Amendment freedom of expression case, and then I've also had to familiarize myself with water law and tribal law. We represented
Oh, really?
an
Tribal?
Indian tribe that had a watercraft rental place down on the river.
Those laws get a little complicated because they're different than
They are, but all
They're-
those cases are gonna come to district court, and I was able to, go through all those
And the
different issues.
Constitution has some big differences, doesn't it? With a Indian
They
tribe,
do.
let's say, and boy, that gets complicated because
Are
They
you
do, but
Two
they
sets
can
of
defer
rules.
jurisdiction to another, but they have, the opportunity of whether they want to defer it or not, it's their choice first.
are
Ah,
you in
right.
your first term now in Unicorn?
Yes, first term, I've been there, it'll be 5 years this June.
So next June you run. You're not gonna need to run because you're gonna be in district
You're
court.
right, I'm gonna
And
get this position.
that's why you need to be positive.
But I
Um,
think that's a good thing.
and district's only 4 years.
Well,
Thought it was
it's-
6.
It is 6,
Oh,
however,
okay.
you're filling an unexpired term.
So you're coming
with
in 2
Jared
years
Teo's term.
already into
Correct.
the normal cycle.
And that could also be another issue why a
Right,
lot of people
I
didn't
gotcha.
run, because to get retirement or PERS, you need 5 years. So a lot of people don't want a 4-year job because they might not get that retirement fund.
But if you when you win the election now in November, you go for 6 years.
No, 4.
4
It's a
because
4-year
it's up.
term.
Oh, because there's 2 already.
2
that
have
been
already
used
gone
to-
by, yeah.
But I don't need the retirement, so I'm not in it for that. I'm in it because I know I can do a good
A
job.
better
as
job,
district court.
yeah.
When I saw the openings that had filed and I saw, what the spots that were open, and I looked at the qualifications, and I knew that I had both civil and criminal expense, and I've had the Nevada experience. Plus, I'm the only judge that has 200 and, I guess, 50 hours now of judicial education to be running for that with over 4 years' experience on the bench. And I think working in Nevada law, that actually, it goes to my advantage. I show that I held up under scrutiny and I won't bow to political
Yeah.
influence.
So how do you think that your current situation helps or hurts your election bid? Should we say that? I mean, is that a tough question? I
It
guess
is.
probably.
I guess it is. I guess you
Yeah,
can see
you don't
either
really
way.
know. See what happens.
I
I,
don't know.
guess.
I don't know.
Yeah.
I think it's good that people know
Huh?
I'm not gonna bow down. to
Publicity, good or
political pressure.
bad? All publicity is good. Is that?
Well, as long as they spell your name right, there's no such thing as bad publicity. 'Cause I've been told that, but I don't know for sure.
Yeah. Well, I think the name Ramsey has certainly been out there a little more. So.
Do you ever had any
It is-
bad publicity, Craig?
But if you
I don't
notice,
think so.
Craig called me Harris. That's the name I went under before when I was a prosecutor.
Oh, I didn't.
So,
Today he did.
yeah, he
I
did.
didn't pick
Yeah,
that up.
before
I
Savannah,
guess
sorry,
I'm
I've
not
known
listening.
her as Catherine Harris for a long,
I've been
long
Cat
time.
Harris for
Sorry.
a long
Oh.
time. For a long
Well,
time.
that's hard to shake, I guess. Yeah.
Well, I was a paralegal for 14 years before I went to law school. I'm one of the only local ones here.
Wow,
so
you're a
that's why
paralegal before you go get trained.
I
That's
was.
interesting.
I was, I
Cart
had a
before
love
the
for
horse.
law.
How many judges do you think have the extensive background that you do? How
Well,
many?
since I haven't looked at all the judges'
No.
background, I don't know.
What
I
about?
just know I loved doing law the minute that I started, and I haven't.
What about the other person that is running for the same job that you're running now? He got the extensive background that you do, or
Well, there's 4 people running.
oh, there's 4 people
There's 4
running.
people running, and I have not looked at their resumes to see what their background was before they went to law school. So I can't
There's
answer that.
you the
I'm
only
sorry.
female.
There's 2 females and 2 males
Oh,
that are running. The other
Oh.
female is from California and just recently moved here.
hmm.
Again, I don't know if that,
You don't know how much she know the Nevada law.
I don't know.
Nevada law
She
is
knows
not
about
an
it.
easy law, right, Greg?
No, no, I wouldn't call it difficult. We have 2 or 3 areas of law that aren't common in other states. We have a lot of mineral law, mineral mining rights, and water law is unique, but the criminal code is pretty much.
The same.
Pretty
Same.
much the same as California or Utah or
Californians are fallen in love with government. The religion of the 21st century is the idea that the government will solve all your problems for you. And so California has so much law now that it seems like it's on the border of collapse. But there's just ridiculous amounts of law there. But no, we don't have anywhere near that amount of law.
Wow.
let me ask you, both of you, as you both member of the bar, so do you think it's a good idea for the DAs to have a television show? Why? Why are you laughing? You know that
Because
they
there's
are.
absolutely nothing I can do that's not going to get me in trouble. Once again, as I point out to you, that it's a very small town, and I deal with Steve Wolfson in his office.
I do with him
on-
too.
on
I
4 or
deal
5
with
times a
him
day.
too, and
But you
I
know, our society is
I
changing.
do
now.
like him very much. I'm not gonna deny it. I like him, and I like. As a matter of fact, before he became a DA, I used to go to his office in the afternoon and kind of pick his brains, because I consider him a very.
Well, you certainly
intelligent-
see a difference in attitude when there's a camera in the courtroom, don't you, on these cases? I think that's pretty apparent.
What
That's
is-
why I wanted to know. I wanted to get to that point where the cameras are when it's not related to the
Place with a
show.
camera.
there was
You know, they're videotaped anyway, so I don't know why that would make a big difference, but.
There
I
was
guess it
a
could.
German physicist, Heisenberg, had created the Heisenberg uncertainty principle. That if you and his conclusion was that the process of looking something changed it. So that
Yeah,
if you looked
that's
at
what
it, by definition, you could change it. Now this was regarding quantum physics, but it's kind of an interesting psychological phenomenon. The answer is, in my experience, yes, cameras in the courtroom clearly change behavior.
Yeah,
There's no
and that's
argument
probably
there.
not good, I would guess.
Well, it depends. Now, a prosecutor's job is a very different job. It's a very difficult job, and a good prosecutor is a benefit to the community. A prosecutor's job, however, is to seek justice. And just because you can prosecute a case doesn't necessarily mean you should. Now, if a prosecutor's motivation is not seeking justice, but it's self-aggrandizement,
That would
or
make a difference.
it's publicity, then it goes right to the soul of the profession,
Yeah.
which is what you're doing. Now, you know, we Americans have this schizophrenic approach to government. We all like the man who doesn't compromise his principles and stands up for things, but then we all went and voted for a form of government that requires everyone to compromise their principles to get anything done. So you know, there's no legislatures full of John Waynes and General Pattons. Okay,
Right, that's
So
right.
you know, the legislature and the process is about compromising, getting things done. No victim of crime thinks the defendant got punished hard enough. I mean, I don't know I've ever seen that phenomenon. So, you know, but the reality is, and I've learned this the hard way, is time always passes and people always get out of prison. And you have to think about where you're going to be when the defendant eventually gets out of prison. And so, you know, thinking about things and taking a little longer view of things.
You mean
So-
as a prosecutor?
As a prosecutor,
You have to worry about
when
where
I
you
was-
are when okay.
Now, my philosophy and my observation was very profound, or very simple. Was the first time a young man got in trouble was the first time there needed to be consequences. I filled up buses and sent him up to boot camp. But if the young man could make it through boot camp, I didn't have any trouble dismissing the charges. He walked away. He learned his lesson. The victim got 6 months in jail, and now he's free to go out and get a job and not be a felon. Because remember, when we maim a guy with a
Yeah,
felony
it's a scarlet
conviction,
letter.
you maim a guy with a felony conviction, you've now made sure that he's going to be very limited in his ability to pay us taxes, his ability to get any position of responsibility, and the fact
Yep.
of the matter is, good judgment comes from experience. Experience comes from mistakes. And mistakes comes from bad judgment. Now, a prosecutor in court with a TV camera will sit there and like, well, the kid who stole your car, you know, the owner of the car wants him hanged, and I understand. But having said that, you know, the kid's eventually going to be 20 years old instead of 19, and he's eventually going to get out of prison, probably sooner rather than later, since we have 17,000 people in prison now.
Yeah.
We can't afford it. And so the question is, what happens then? Now, if the prosecutor's standing up on a soapbox in the camera making speeches, you know, instead of getting something responsibly done with a case, then that camera in the courtroom is a bad idea. If it just highlights the way things really work, and so everyone understands that the prosecutors and the defense attorneys and the judges all have very morally complicated jobs, you know, then that's much better for the society. So I guess the question is what's the TV show going to be about, and what's the purpose of it?
Oh, we're learning that now on FX.
I've not had a chance to see
Oh.
it yet, so
Oh.
are they,
You don't?
I don't watch television. I'm sorry, I don't have enough time.
Good. You listen to the radio?
Interesting because
I do listen to a particular radio
Yeah.
show.
I watched the whole trial
Yeah.
live, and now I'm watching the recreation. And it's kind
Yeah.
of like, wow, that's
Let me ask you.
What he said about the
interesting.
boot camp is actually good because it helps with recidivism on some of these cases.
Yeah.
If we have a petty larceny person that comes in, the answer is not 1,000 fine, 180 days in jail if they do it again. It's to get them to a petty larceny school or some
Well,
counseling.
the other thing is
so they
all people are
understand.
different too, so it's
Yeah.
hard to pass one particular game plan because it's not going to fit to everybody.
Right, and you look
'Cause,
at their
you know,
history.
there's-
How many times
yeah,
have they done this? Were they doing it before? And that was another positive thing that our court has done.
It's tough.
Prior to me taking office, there was no online schools that they permitted. If you wanted to go to traffic school, it had to be person on there. But our society's changing, and so is our media and our access and things like that. So we allow now online schools for traffic school and for certain other classes. And that actually helps because now people aren't going into warrant so fast because now they can do it.
How do
again
you
with the
supervise
24/7.
compliance though with online?
We have a compliance department that works with that.
Yeah, I was
And
just
then they
wondering
have to
how that
come in and
worked.
they have to come in, they print their certificates out and they have to come in and bring those in also.
But how do you know they're actually online?
Well,
Just
that
my-
is- Yeah, that is something as well, but they do
Yeah.
offer that, so our court does
Well.
offer the online classes for that. But we also have drug classes that are offered there. We hired a counselor that would assist, and we can keep the cost low for members of the community that helps. And if we open up our facility for traffic school, petty larceny school, and some anger management classes or something of that nature, then we're allowing community access to something centrally located rather than us having to send them somewhere, past Sahara or Charleston to get these classes. So it makes them more successful in doing these classes. And all these things started after I became a judge. These are some more of the programs that I started since I've been there that doesn't make the newspaper, that doesn't get, broadcast, that
Right.
people
Yeah.
don't know
Right.
about.
Yeah.
But it's a good thing.
And that
to
must
have people do
frustrate
these
you
classes.
because you're really accomplishing some good things, and nobody knows about it.
Right. Online
So-
classes for
Well,
schools are
it's-
now accepted. We have drug counseling right there, and we have classes for the schools right at the courthouse to keep costs low and to keep the community members and
But let me ask you, why is the reason that North Las Vegas Muni Court don't allow people to go into the courtroom like in the Regional Justice Center? You go in one courtroom, you go into another one. Over there, if you don't have a citation or you don't have a reason to be there, you cannot go in there.
anyone can come into my court. It's always been open.
Yeah, but the marshal or the bailiff and the door don't let you in if you don't have a.
Nope, they do.
I tried to go in
They
there.
don't let you in.
I tried to go in there.
In my court?
Well, I wanted to go see the two courts. I wanted to listen how
Well,
they
and
work.
while they were going on?
Yeah,
How long ago was that?
I don't know, 3, 4, 5 months ago, something like that. I've been trying to do that twice.
Oh, my
And,
court's
it
open and
costs,
anyone's welcome, and I tell my bailiff, let anyone in.
This is the one in the door when you walk in. And there's like a little gate in there that you have to go to over here.
Oh, the first security before
Yeah,
you get to the
yeah.
windows in the courts?
Yeah. Yeah, that's why I stopped going to North Las Vegas because,
Well, come
and
on anytime, you can observe any court. We're open to the public.
really?
Kind of like the airport terminal, you can't get to the gates if you don't have a ticket.
Now, Judge, how can I help you to obtain the position that you're looking for now? How can we help you? I believe then, when you first run for Muni Court, we help you. We supported you. I think at that time we still have endorsements. We don't do endorsements
Well,
anymore.
early voting starts the end of May. I
Yeah.
think it's good for people to understand the difference of the candidates that are running in their experience and background. I'm the only candidate that has both prosecutor and defense experience in district court and has worked in both civil and criminal in nature in that same court. You can run the names in the county website and put the bar numbers of the people that are running and see how many cases they've handled in district court to see whether or not they have that experience in there. And that's one thing that anyone can do, but easiest thing or best thing for me is to get people out to vote when early voting starts.
Right,
So at the
okay.
end of May, they're gonna have early voting until, June 10th, and then June 14th is the election. So I just encourage people to get out and vote, because every vote counts. You know, we've seen that in
Okay.
North Las Vegas. We had a one-vote race, a
Well,
couple years ago.
If
And
you
it
have
is
any,
important.
if you have any signs, I'd be happy and I'd be honored to have your sign
I
in the
have
front
signs.
door.
I can drop some off.
And,
If anybody wants any, they can call me
Even
anytime.
though, oh, that's district code, yeah, that's district code, yeah.
I have those
I
signs,
can
yeah.
put one in my house, I can put one in my friend's house.
Anybody in Clark County can vote for me. It's a countywide
Yes,
race.
I would like to help you. I believe that you are the most qualified
I don't
candidate.
battle
I
political
look at the
pressure.
4 candidates. You know, the reason I ask you is because I want you to answer, and people hear you saying that it's two female and 2 male candidates, and I want to make sure then you are gonna be the one to be the winner in that race. You be the most fair, most independent, the most, you know, like we talked the other day. We don't endorse people, but I can recommend and I can uh, talk to people about you, and I'd be more
I
than
would appreciate it.
I'd be more than honored
It's
to
hard to
do
get my
that.
message out every time that this positive stuff I've been doing and the changes I've been making have all been good for our community.
And I
Sounds
do,
like it, yeah.
I do that every time somebody come out with the same routine
same
story,
story,
the
same
same story that the little paper on Bonanza Road print, or the story then they hear from other people,
And
and
with
I
that-
put the other side of the story.
With that, it's a matter, it's involved in civil litigation, and the courts will, you know, they'll get both sides of it, and we'll see what the court deals with that issue. But yeah, that's being handled, and that should be over hopefully by the end of the year. But I believe in equality for citizens and justice for the community. And
Kind of
Okay,
almost
good.
becomes mute though if you should win the election, doesn't it?
well, we're still gonna fight for it. I still believe
I
in
know,
Yeah.
but I mean it's.
Yeah. Greg,
don't know.
anything you want to say before we say goodbye?
No, just when's lunch getting here?
When is your lunch coming in?
Oh, unfortunately, I have to be in court at 2 o'clock, which is why I'm looking a little fidgety.
Always tell me the same
Yep.
thing,
We'll have
man.
to go and have some lunch.
I wasn't gonna let you pay for the lunch. I was gonna, you know, but thank you for
Why,
being here,
thank you.
both
Well,
of
thank you for the
you.
invitation.
Thanks for the
Pleasure to be here again.
You know, and don't forget to listen to this show at.
On. Good afternoon, folks. Stephen, Captain Truth Dempsey here with this edition of your wake up call. I got woke up last night. Be careful of the cruise supporters. Since I used to be one, I tried to explain to a gentleman what I thought I'd seen, and his reaction was, I think it was the alcohol probably talking. His reaction was to, in the head,